This is Susan. Susan loves to bike. While out for a ride, she falls and breaks her arm. Special cells called neurons send a signal through the spinal cord to the brain, which interprets the signal as pain. Susan understands the pain means she needs to go to the hospital, and her body is equipped for survival, helping her not to panic so she can seek help. Many of her neurons are covered in proteins called opioid receptors. These receptors act like a brake to slow down the neuron's ability to send pain signals. When injured, her body releases natural painkillers called endorphins. Like a key in a lock, endorphins activate opioid receptors, slowing down the pain signal and preventing a panic. Susan gets treated for the broken bone, but 3 months later, her arm still hurts. And now that pain is making her feel depressed and anxious. So her doctor prescribes an opioid painkiller. There are many different opioids, but they all share a chemical similarity to our own endorphins. This allows them to bind to the same opioid receptors and stop pain signals. But that's not all they do. Deep inside Susan's brain is a region called the ventral tegmental area, or VTA for short. The VTA is full of neurons that produce a chemical called dopamine. When something good happens, dopamine is released, giving Susan a feeling of pleasure. This helps teach her brain to keep seeking out good things. To keep dopamine neurons in check, inhibitory neurons keep the brakes on until something good comes along. Just like the pain neuron, these neurons are covered in opioid receptors. When Susan takes the painkiller prescribed by her doctor, the opioid receptors turn off the inhibitory neurons and release the brake on the dopamine neurons. The rush of dopamine temporarily eliminates Susan's depression and anxiety, and she feels relief, calmness, and even euphoria. As Susan continues to take the painkillers, her brain responds by trying to regain its balance. Her inhibitory neurons work extra hard, even when the opioid receptors are activated, and it becomes harder and harder for her dopamine neurons to release dopamine. Susan finds that she needs to increase her dose of painkillers in order to feel comfortable. This is called tolerance. Eventually, Susan's pills run out. Inhibitory neurons that had been working overtime are let loose, clamping down on those dopamine neurons and shutting them off almost completely. Now, not only is Susan in pain, but the depression and anxiety come back. On top of that, Susan feels ravaged by an inescapable physical sickness far worse than any flu. Susan's body is going through withdrawal. Most people who take opioids for a long time tend to experience some withdrawal, but they can still stop taking the pills and return to normal. But for people like Susan, it's not so easy. Her genetics and the environment she grew up in put her at a higher risk for addiction. Her withdrawal symptoms aren't just unpleasant, they're unbearable. Susan thinks the only way to feel normal is to find more opioids. And this is how the cycle of opioid addiction emerges, driven by a brain trying to regain its balance. But there is hope for Susan. Though the road to recovery can be challenging and there may be setbacks, treatment can retrain Susan's brain. With the help of medication and therapy, Susan finds pleasure in her life once again.
Overcoming drug addiction was difficult, but I found the path to recovery that worked for me. Treatment helped me come to terms with the issues in my life that caused me to use drugs. And I found better ways to cope. Learning I had a substance use disorder helped me realize I needed to make a change. The road to recovery is different for everyone. There were good days and bad days, but I found strength in seeking help. My friends and family made a huge difference in my recovery. I never gave up. I found my path, and I keep walking it every day. Find the path that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our edition of Speak Your Mind on this Friday. We're asking everybody the following question that we had asked yesterday about addictions. What do you think, or what do you think is the best approach to overcome addiction, or people who are struggling now with addictions? I have with me Ms. Lupita. Ms. Lupita, good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening. I'm doing very well. Being here with the topic for today, we have our poll also that is still open since yesterday, so you guys could definitely scan the QR code that appears right there on the screen. And we have the following question: addictions. What impacts a person to have a substance abuse? With the options of relationship with family, mental health, financial situation, curiosity, environment, or friends. So we have those, and people definitely could scan the QR code so that by the end of the program, we can close our poll for tonight.
You can give us a call if you want, 877-785-8700, or through WhatsApp. You can also message us, 437-233-9815. I think we have with us already Jackie. Let's see if we can connect her now. Miss Jackie, are you there?
Yes, Pastor, I'm here.
Miss Jackie, we have been asking everybody yesterday, today, about what do you think causes somebody to get addicted to a drug, to something? Do you think it's more mental, maybe because of a problem in the family, curiosity because of the friends? Can you speak your mind on this?
Okay, so based on my experience, right? For me, everything started like curiosity. You know, um, when you go to school, when you just want to be around, when you are around people, you just want to fit in, right? So back in that time, I didn't see the 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 the, the dark part of it. So for me, yes, you know what? It's just one cigarette, one ganja, how they say it outside, or try cocaine. It was normal, right? It was just out of curiosity. So, of course, for some people that they have, how can I say, problems, they will see that like a way out.
Now, Miss
Which
Jackie,
is really not the case.
were you ever addicted, whether to drugs, to alcohol?
Oh yes.
For how long?
Oof. Well, since I came from back home, I was addicted to alcohol. So in here, it became worse because back home I had a life that for me was a life. So all the time back there, even though I was not working, I used to hang around every single day with all my friends. So drinking, it was normal. But when I came here, which is a different country, you feel lonely, you have to work. It's another story, right? It was pushing me more to that. I mean, to drink more. And in here, I became more addicted to drugs.
Do you think, Jackie, that usually when somebody's by themselves, like you said, no, you felt a little bit more lonely. Do you think that normally takes somebody to, kind of go crazy? Because in your country, did you ever have a limit? Were you ever limited in using drugs or drinking?
To use drugs, yes, but not to drink.
And then when you came here, you kind of did everything.
No, here it became worse. Why? Because I was feeling lonely. I had more problem with my relationship. So for me, it was easy just to, you know what, I just want to forget about everything, and that's it.
Now, Ms. Jackie, how many years do you think you were addicted, more or less?
Okay, so I started to have to smoke cigarettes when I was in high school. So after I graduated in high school, so then I came here in 2005, right? So it was already like 20 years or more than 20 years with cigarette. With cigarette.
20 years?
Yes, I'm 42. I'm 42.
42?
So,
Miss, you
Yes.
don't look like you're day over 22.
No, no. So because it's normal, then
Mm.
it is normal for you just to smoke. So I used to smoke. I used to smoke. It was like a hidden. Once I was in high school, it was, yeah, that's it. My father couldn't do, my mom couldn't do anything.
And now, how long have you been free?
So since I started to go to the Universal Church, it was really hard for me
Mhm.
to really, how can I say that, to become free of all of the addiction that I had. I tried so many things, even the acupuncture. They said, right, acupuncture. I tried so many things, and nothing worked. Nothing worked. So the only thing that it worked, it was a campaign that my mom did for me to quit smoking and for me to, go to the church.
And so,
Uh-huh.
Jackie, little by little, you started seeing the results. Do you still smoke now?
No,
Do you still drink now?
no, I don't.
Now,
I
Miss Jackie, for this
It
person
was
who's
hard. It was really hard for me to to quit.
that was going to
But
be my
I
next
only
question.
did it. Okay.
When you started noticing a little bit of changes, what was the first thing you stopped doing?
So for me, was the way I quit. I end up quitting smoking. It was really crazy because I used to smoke a lot, and on top of that, when I was drinking, I used to smoke even more. So normally, like, I could smoke, for example, if I was smoking 1.5 packet a day, but when I was drinking, I would reach 2.5, because
Wow.
it was just one after another. So to me it was, I didn't even believe, because the way I quit it, it was really, I will even say, weird for the people who are outside.
Yeah.
So one day, I just, out of the sudden, I said, you know what, I don't want to smoke no more. Deep inside of me was something like it was pushing me to that.
Mm.
I used to go to buy. I was even go to the gas station, to the convenience store, to buy the cigarette. And I used to even ask, can you give me a pack of the Morier, please? And when they were
You
about
knew
to give it to
what
me,
pack would you buy, Jackie?
the Morier,
Okay.
in here, the Morier.
So you would buy it and what?
No, no. When I was asking, something was taking me out from the place. And you know what? And then I used to say, no, I don't want anymore. I don't want. So I used to walk away. I didn't understand, but that was the result of one of the campaign of my mom.
Now, Miss Jackie, for this person who's watching us, who probably struggles with addiction, they probably also are going through a tough time. Do you think, looking back at your story, you think they can be free from addictions also?
Of course, they can. Everything, you know what? Everything is. I know it's hard to say, but it's everything is about the way I quit it. Well, the way I became drugs, it was really crazy too. I want, because I saw that nothing in my life was going forward.
Mhm.
Nothing. So I was feeling stuck. I was having stress, really bad, like relationship, financial. And I said, you know what, God, or you change me, or you help me, or you kill me.
And now, Jackie, who is the Jackie today?
Oh, now if I don't need anything of those, anything of that, not cigarette, not smoke, not crack. I mean, sorry, cocaine. I didn't use crack, cocaine. Uh, Nothing, no alcohol, nothing.
Completely free.
Once you are okay with God, and you obey and you do what you have to do, you don't need no therapy. You don't need to go nowhere. He will set you free.
Miss Jackie, thank you so much for speaking your mind. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Have a good night, okay?
Thank you so much, Pastor. Good night.
877-785-8700 or through WhatsApp 437-233-9815. I want to show you now a series of videos. Sometimes we hear about rehab, sometimes we hear about treatment, sometimes we hear about the side effects, the withdrawals, what one feels. But I want to show you these videos that better explain where we're trying to get at. We'll be right back.
I don't know. I think that drugs and alcohol always held the promise of different than what I was. For example, if I am the color yellow one day, drugs hold the promise of me not being yellow. The next day, if I'm the color red, drugs hold the promise potentially of me being yellow. It's a total illusion what drugs are going to give you and what alcohol is going to promise you. It was like being in a new world where the rules were completely different. The cast of characters changed. First of all, we stayed up for days and days. And by days, I mean like 5 days was not unusual. So we're sleep deprived. And when we stay up for that long, I mean that I'm just drinking and consuming drugs. Everything about me moved differently and my brain started working differently. My words came out differently. My posture was different. My eye contact was different. It was like I was morphing into, and it wasn't just a transitional different person, it was a different person. I don't even know how any of us survived, to be honest with you. For me, I didn't get sober from a treatment center. Like I tried, I did everything that was asked, but I was miserable and I developed an eating disorder at the last treatment center that I was at. I came back to Toronto and I met with the woman I had met with before. She said to me, I can't help you. Like, you're getting worse. You know, you're gonna have to come back to me when you have some willingness. And I thought, I don't know what she's talking about. Like, what is she talking about? I'm willing. I went to treatment. How much more willing can you get? And then I went out and got drunk and got hit by a car. Then I realized I'm in like big trouble. You know, I'm going to die. There is just not even a question. There is no magic formula. It is desperation and it's willingness. There's a solution. And remember, this is my opinion based on my experience. Like, I can't be disingenuous and say that there are other ways. For me, there are no other ways. I tried all of them. And I think of the 12 steps as sort of the last house on the block. Like, the 12 steps, they help you to a spiritual solution. I had the baby when I was, I guess, 4 years sober. And the gift of sobriety with my baby is that I get to be really actually here. You know, not all the time perfectly, but here in a way that I think even some normal people don't have the ability to be, only because when you have the experience of active addiction and a brush with death and that kind of thing, I think that it gives you an appreciation for life.
Recovery. What is it? Well, according to the Recovery Research Institute, recovery from a substance use disorder is a process of improved physical, psychological, and social well-being and health. The National Institute on Drug Abuse says, recovery is a process of change through which people improve their health and wellness, live self-directed lives, and strive to reach their full potential. In the 1970s, the trans-theoretical model of behavior change emerged and explored people's readiness to change. The 6 stages of change has helped many people better navigate their process with intentional change and recovery. Stage 1 is the pre-contemplative stage, when a person is yet to see that their substance use causes problems in their life, although it is clear to those around them. Stage 2 is the contemplative stage, where the individual considers the possibility that their substance use is causing issues. They may decide to cut back or stop using drugs or alcohol. At stage 3, the preparation stage, the person no longer needs convincing. They do research and gather information about treatment options, what recovery means, or how to achieve it. Action is the 4th stage. In this stage of recovery, a person feels self-confident they can change and take effectual steps towards sobriety. Choosing a treatment program that meets their needs can range from outpatient treatment to inpatient rehab, from sober living communities to mutual aid programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous. Next comes the maintenance stage. Persons in this stage avoid temptation and are unbothered by triggers. By using available resources in their community, their families, or other supports, they can maintain sobriety. Coping skills keep them from using drugs or alcohol. Nevertheless, the possibility of relapse still exists. That's why the maintenance stage also means having an excellent strategy for avoiding relapse and for getting out of it. For many people, this is the last stage in their recovery. Their maintenance work continues throughout their lifetime to sustain abstinence and prevent relapse. But the true culmination of the stages of change occurs at the termination stage. It happens after an individual has been avoiding triggers for quite some time, resisting urges, and possibly relapsing. At this point, a person has no desire to return to their former alcohol or drug-seeking behaviors. As a result, their health has improved substantially, as has their quality of life. Recovery goes beyond abstinence, and getting help is easy. Someone is always a mere call, click, text, or chatbot away. Your bright tomorrow starts with positive change today.
The idea of forcing someone with a drug addiction into rehab, experts say, is legally and ethically complex. But it's an idea Alberta's United Conservative Party's Minister of Public Safety says is being considered as the addiction crisis continues.
To make sure that we are compassionate, and I would say that it's not compassionate to allow that person to continue to overdose 5 to 10 times a day.
The Globe and Mail reporting Tuesday, Alberta is actively exploring creating a framework for what they call a Compassionate Care Act, involuntary treatment if someone with an addiction is charged with a non-violent crime, or if their family or police can prove to an independent panel it's necessary, pointing to programs in some U.S. states or countries like Portugal. But this type of policy would likely end up in court because of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
The real argument would be whether government can justify that infringement on individual rights. And that would be a real uphill battle for them, given that I haven't seen compelling evidence for this kind of policy. And I think that it would be hard for them to demonstrate that they didn't have alternative policies available to them that would impair individual rights.
Right now, the Mental Health Act already allows for someone to be committed against their will when dealing with a crisis, including drug addictions, but only under extreme criteria, if they pose an immediate risk to themselves or others. But they have the right to refuse treatment if they have the capacity to understand the risks.
It may drive people to not seek treatment if they fear that seeking help might then subject them to involuntary treatment that they didn't want.
The Minister of Mental Health and Addictions Office maintaining no decision has been made, but they will continue to build out a full continuum of care, including prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery. And while the NDP government in British Columbia has said they are looking into forced treatment, the Alberta NDP in a statement to City News saying this will not solve the drug poisoning crisis. To help someone suffering from addictions, you need to meet them where they are, while committing to investing in evidence-based mental health. In Edmonton, Carly Robinson, City News. The idea of forcing someone with a drug addiction into rehab, experts say, is legally and ethically complex. But it's an idea Alberta's United Conservative Party's Minister of Public Safety says is being considered as the addiction crisis continues.
To make sure that we are compassionate, and I would say that it's not compassionate to allow that person to continue to overdose 5 to 10 times a day.
The Globe and Mail reporting Tuesday, Alberta is actively exploring creating a framework for what they call a Compassionate Care Act.
877-785-8700 or 437-233-9815. I think we have Sammy with us. Let's see if we can connect him now. We've been talking, Sammy, throughout the whole program, tonight's, yesterday's, about addiction, about people who, certain things that cause it. Sammy, were you ever somebody who was addicted to drugs or to anything?
Definitely. I had some addictions. I actually had an addiction to pornography.
Mhm.
I drank and I smoked for about 5 years. It's not that long, but when I started it, it was something that I felt like I couldn't live without. And pornography, I was addicted to that for like more than 10 years.
And usually, when an addiction, was it somebody who told you about it? Was it something out of curiosity? How do you think that developed?
Pornography was a pleasure thing. Smoking and drinking was definitely curiosity. It was something that I didn't know. I wasn't raised to do it. I didn't think I needed it, but I was curious. And then once I tried it, I was like, wow. And that got me hooked on it.
Now, I know, for example, we might have some people who watch us who are like, oh, addicted to pornography. I don't see that much of a problem. What do you think were a little bit of the problems that you saw, or a little bit of effects that you saw because of that addiction?
A dirty mind. You can't look at a woman in a clean way. That was something strong. The urges, like you felt like you must do it. And if you don't watch it, if you don't, participate in what's going on, like something's wrong with you. So it affected my mentality as well, because, amongst guys, if you say, nah, I don't watch pornography, it's like, what? Like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you watch pornography? So it affected in a lot of ways.
Do you think that kind of even prohibits somebody from maturing? I think usually there are some studies that say that there are some people who their mindset changes into kind of like a fantasy thing. So they kind of play out scenarios that really aren't real, really hypothetical, but it kind of leaves them a little bit like shy, or maybe they feel ashamed. Did you ever feel some type of shame with that?
I felt shame. It's embarrassing, like in some cases, but some cases where oh, you're the man, like you're the man. Look what you're watching, and it makes good for good laughters. But going back to the fantasy part, that's a billion % correct, because there are guys today, from my experience, there's guys today that are like 50, 60, 40. They're high in their age, and they're still watching pornography. They some of them are married, some of them, and these are things that I've experienced. I've spoken to people and seen. They're married. They're they're high in age, but they're still watching, and they're watching every day. Some of them, if you go to their phone history, you're gonna see some crazy stuff there. And
if I look at that Safari, or if I look at that Google Chrome,
for a lot of people, yeah, it's like a it's like a fantasy, because they're watching something that the chances of them having it are slim. But if you ask them, they're like, oh, I wish I had that.
Now, you see, Sammy, one of the things that I find a bit interesting, what do you think for you was a little bit, not worse, but maybe harder to overcome? Pornography or the drinking and smoking?
Definitely pornography, because in some circumstances, drinking and smoking, it was illegal back then. It was illegal to smoke weed. You can't walk down the block. If you're in the hallway smoking weed, you're like, oh, snap, like, are the police about to come? If you're drinking, I was under 21, is somebody about to pull up? So, it was harder. But pornography, like, that's not, I mean, the websites say if you're 18 and older. If you're 18 or younger, don't go on these websites. But there's nobody there to watch or nothing like that. So, you get free will. You can watch it at any moment. And there was like these playing cards, like, I forgot the name of the card, spades, cards like that, where even those cards would have pornography on them. So pornography was just so easy.
I think I remember when they would throw it on the floor.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Bad memory. It was like game cards, but
yeah. But they were like little ones. Peter, you remember that? Did you ever see that? I'm asking Lupita as if she knows.
Definitely not. I don't know.
Sammy, is that what you're talking about? The little cards that had like women on them?
Yeah, like the playing card.
That's old. Hey, look, hold on, time out. If you don't know what we're talking about, Back then, there would be people, I don't know for what weird reason, they would give cards, and the card, right, Sammy, it would have like a woman naked on it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. They don't do that anymore, thank God. But so something like that you were talking about.
Exactly. It's like I remember being in third grade, fourth grade, and already being given those cards. And what, I was 9 years old, 8 years old. Like, that stuff was, you know, it was pressuring. Like, oh, if you don't watch, and then like if you try to look away, they're gonna be like, yo, what's wrong with you? Why are you not looking?
Yeah. Now, you know, usually when we think of an addiction, we usually think of drugs. We think of fentanyl. We think of marijuana. We think of cocaine. We think of crack. We think of Percocets. We think of something heavy. And in reality, although pornography, somebody probably was like, oh, that's it? That's all? That's a big problem. But the repercussions that it has on somebody mentally, the repercussions that it has with just having a conversation with a girl, did that ever change for you? Just with the conversation with a female inside of your mind because of the pornography that you would watch?
100%. It's like, you know, you kind of lose the value of a woman, and you know, kind of treat them like a pleasure tool or something like that. You know, like as I was mentioning earlier about a dirty mind, you know, like you see what you see on the screens, on the, you know, in pornography is like, you know, I gotta do this 100%. I gotta do this, and a lot of the stuff you see is degrading. I know that it's some people's careers, and if you know if that's their career, I'm not judging it, but some of the stuff you see is like, it's some degrading stuff. Like, it's putting people down, it's putting women down, it's putting people down. And you know, I would try to do that stuff, and you know, I'm putting people down. I had to think, if I had a daughter and somebody's doing to my daughter what I'm doing to other girls, oh man, I'd be really angry. But
now, Sammy,
it really,
you said how long do you think you had that addiction for?
Well, it started when I was a young, maybe in around 10 or 11. So, you know, you could say around 10 years. I started doing what I saw for about 4 or 5 years.
Wow. Now, well, I have to confirm, no? You don't watch porn anymore, correct?
No, not at all.
In your mind, you were able to clean up those thoughts?
Definitely. Always thoughts come in the sense of negative thoughts. But back then, once the thought came, I entertained it. And I'm like, you know how when you rub your hands together and you're like, oh, yes, I entertained it. Now, you know, I don't entertain those type of things.
Now, this person who's watching us, maybe their addiction has to do more with drugs. But just maybe this person who's watching us right now, they have that little secret that they go to porn. They don't want nobody to know. They're a little shy. They're a little embarrassed. At the end, their conscience kind of gets at them at night. You think they can be free from that, Sammy?
100% they could be free. I was free from it. So, you know, 100% they could be free. And they have to understand that, listen, it's fun. You know, the pleasure, it gives you that adrenaline rush. It feels good. It doesn't feel wrong. Especially if you don't have a conscience, it feels good. But you got to know that little by little, that stuff is going to start messing with you, and it's going to start making you, you know, obsessed, and that obsession is going to lead to worse things. But I overcame it, and, you know, I believe anybody can overcome it.
Sammy, thank you so much for speaking your mind. Thank you for giving us the insight on addiction that in reality we kind of forgot about, no? But I'm glad you overcame, and I'm glad that you also believe that this person who's watching us can be free. Have a good night, Sammy, okay?
Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care. Lupita, you see how addictions come in different forms. I know we've been focusing in these last 2 days about drug addiction, but one of the things that Sammy said were very, very true, no? Do we have any comments?
Yeah, we have some comments here. We have Diana that says, I am a full-time recovery from cocaine addiction. I suffered with horrendous cravings regular. Understanding how addiction works with the dopamine was a key ingredient to overcoming my addiction. Once we understand something like addiction and how our brain reacts, it can help us to move forward. I hope everybody is well and at peace. We have Lorena that says, I started smoking at a very young age and I was always curious about it. And because it was easy to access, I was always able to try it. I got to an age where I was very easily influenced, and because I would hear good things about it, and I had been at a really low point where I was insecure and felt as if my own family had hated me, I got really attached to the group of people that had shown me how to smoke. And every week, more and more, we would get together and we would smoke at the park or far away so that no one would see us. On 420, I got really high and paranoid, so I had a panic attack and felt like I was going to die. I was able to change my life around from that moment and no longer have a desire to smoke. So we have those comments.
You know, I think, Lupita, sometimes there are moments or experiences that we have that kind of mark us.
Yeah.
I always think back, with that comment that you said. One time, we smoked, and in reality, when you're smoking weed with the friends, with the homies, you kind of just chilled. You're in a relaxed state of mind. But I remember when we had smoked around 2:00 in the afternoon. I promise you, Lupita, I had regained consciousness like around 8:00 at night. It was dark. We were by some army base. I was lost. I was out of it. And sometimes that's exactly what happens. And you kind of think back and you're like, man, that's embarrassing. Man, anything could have happened. Well, that's why we urge you all who watch us to be careful. Just like Jamie Lee Curtis, she opens up on her drug addiction and how she was able to recover. Pay attention.
I call myself a junkie. I refer to myself as a junkie simply so I demystify it. I call myself a dope fiend because I'm a dope fiend. This is the addiction issue, but I mean, there are lots of forms of addiction in the universe. I was in a good, stable marriage, writing books for children that were bestsellers. I was getting more and more work and more fame and attention and adulation. I got more as my addiction got worse, not less. My high bottom made that denial much more pervasive because it was all working. It's not working. Because if you are asking yourself, can I stop this? Then you're in a prison of your own mind. And I was in that prison, even though I was fabulous and all the part of show-off business. I had been nursing a secret Vicodin addiction for a very long time, over 10 years. Now it's January 1999. And there was an article in Esquire magazine called Vicodin, My Vicodin, written by a man named Tom Chiarella. And in the article, he describes outing himself by writing the article, that by writing the article, he knew his doctors wouldn't give them to him. He knew that his wife and family were going to be on to him. He was outing himself for a secret that he'd been carrying. And that spoke to me probably louder than anything else. All of a sudden I went, oh, someone else is just like me. So by February, I went to a friend of mine, early February, and I went to a friend of mine and we both had kids the same age, and I kind of like sidled up to her and kind of like, and finally, was able to say that I had a problem with Vicodin. And she looked at me and said, yeah, I know, me too. Isn't it amazing? And she gave me at that moment the number of a doctor who would write you script. Because prior to that, I didn't really get it from doctors. 5-finger discount here and there. I had my ways. That night, when I woke up sometime between sleep and waking, I had a moment of clarity which saved my life, which is simply this. I imagined that she would die and I would attend her funeral and I would hug her children and I would have blood on my hands. Or I would die and she would attend my funeral and she would hug my children with blood on her hands. And in that moment, I understood that it was going to kill me. And I called a friend of mine who was in recovery, an old colleague of mine, and I was terrified about being a public figure and walking into recovery centers and being around recovery, and I was terrified of it. And I said to my friend who was a long time in recovery, I said, is there any way somebody famous can meet me and go with me into a recovery room? And a woman called me, and I met her, somebody I'd never met, and she walked in with me, and I've been sober since that day. The beautiful part of being able to acknowledge your own illness, being an alcoholic, being a drug addict, to call yourself an alcoholic or a drug addict is a badge of honor, because the secret, the shameful secret, is the reason why it is such a pervasive illness in our industry, in every socioeconomic strata, in every country in the world. It is the secret shame that keeps people locked up in their disease. I'm sober today. Am I going to be sober for the rest of my life? I hope so. I'm going to do everything I can to be. But I'm saying I am an addict, and I am in recovery, and I work a hard, good program, and I pay a lot of attention to it, but it's a pernicious disease. I've broken ribs twice last year, and I had to take the very drug that I loved. I was required to take in order to be able to exist, but I did it in a very carefully, very prescribed, very monitored way with a lot of contact. And there was no secrecy. I wasn't hiding it. It was out. The bottle was on the counter. My husband was like, everybody knew. You know, that's a big change for me. But I mean, I'm an addict, so I'm in recovery. I'm not recovered, never will be, but I am working on it.
I mean, there are people who are trying to promote brain surgery for addiction using electrical stimulation of that area, and it doesn't work any better than methadone. And that's not to say that methadone isn't the most useful drug we currently have, but it does not involve invasive surgery. And I should say methadone and buprenorphine, the opioid agonists, are the best treatments that we have for opioid addiction. And what they do is two things. The first thing is they cut the death rate by 50%, which this happens whether you continue using on top or not. So that's like sheer harm reduction, and that's wonderful. If we can keep you alive long enough that you stabilize your life, that is a lot better than having you die. The other thing that they do is they allow people who are ready to stabilize their lives. So you couldn't tell right now if I was on a maintenance treatment or not, because basically once you get a tolerance to these drugs, you are not high or impaired, and you can drive and you can work and you can love and you can do all of these things. What we don't understand is we think, oh, you've just substituted one addiction for another. No, what you've done is you've substituted compulsive behavior despite negative consequences, and now you just have physical dependence. And that's not a real problem as long as you have a safe and legal supply. I think the most important place to start is that addiction is a learning disorder. It's not a sign that you are a bad person. And if you want to have a safe and addiction-free, or at least lower level addiction workplace or school, you want people to feel included and comfortable and safe. And you don't want this to be an adversarial thing. The research shows that the best way to get people help is through compassion and empathy and support, and absolutely not tough love. There may be situations in which an employer has to fire somebody because their performance is just degraded so much that there's no other option. But they shouldn't think I'm doing them a favor by firing them because that will make them hit bottom and it will help them. Sometimes that happens, but sometimes they just go on to a life of homelessness and then die. So you can't assume that creating extra negative consequences is actually going to help a person with addiction. What you want to do is ally yourself with them, and presuming this is an employee that you want to keep, help them realize that this is not a sin. I am not trying to control you. What I want to do is for you to be at your best, at work, at home. And you're not being at your best right now. So what can we do to help? You can approach somebody in a confrontational, degrading, and sort of high-powered manner, or you can approach them as an equal human being deserving of respect. And if you do the latter, you will have much better results. Well, and I have to say, it's almost never going to be easy because people, whether they have addiction or mental illness or anything else going on with them, often don't want to admit to themselves that there's a problem. And, in the addictions field, there's been this whole thing, we got to break through denial and everything like that. Well, people have denial for good reasons. If we didn't have denial, everybody would be sitting around obsessing about death. Or at least I would be. It's a defense mechanism because we need defending. So recognizing that can allow you to approach somebody not from an attacking stance, approach somebody from a befriending sort of stance. And that is hard to do. And some people are going to get very defensive no matter what you do. And it's not going to be a pleasant conversation most of the time, but you can minimize harm. I mean, this whole thing always comes down to like reducing harm, making things less unpleasant if you can't make them non-unpleasant or actually pleasant. So it's really, but the main thing is like see them as a full human being. And I think really important in getting people into any kind of treatment is that I always say this to parents or anybody who has an addicted loved one, the first step should always be a complete, thorough psychiatric evaluation by somebody who is not affiliated with any treatment organization.
And we're back with all of you guys. Lupita, do we have the results of our poll?
Yeah, we do. So we finished up our poll for tonight, and we had the 6% that went for financial situation. We had the 11% that voted for curiosity. The 20% that went relationship with family. 26% that went for mental health, and the majority that went 37% environment and friends. So we can see that many people think that it's always the environment, the people that you hang around with, the people that are introducing to you the types of drugs, a way out of maybe the situation that they're going through. So that was our poll for tonight.
It's so true that it is an environmental thing, or it has to do with friends, because what little kid knows where to get weed from? It's just that simple. What person knows who sells crack? What person knows who sells cocaine? Nobody knows. Somebody introduces you. I was introduced. Majority of the testimonies that you heard today and yesterday, they were introduced. Somebody introduced it to them. So much that it's biblical, if you didn't know. The Bible says, bad company corrupts good habits. And if you're surrounded maybe with people, maybe even family, who kind of put this weight on you, this pressure on you, and you're uncomfortable, you don't feel good, I can tell you, there is a way out. And that's why this Sunday, I want you to be with us, 10 o'clock in the morning. In a little bit, I'm going to show you where we are, but I would love to pray for you now. So if you can, where you are, just close your eyes, and I'm going to pray for you, okay? My God, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I pray for this person who is watching us now. They're on the other side of this screen, and they've been understanding everything that we've been saying. And as they start to realize, they start noticing that they were never the way they were. Someone introduced it to them. And it's not that it's that person's fault, no. But sometimes when we lose control, Lord, we need someone to help us get back on track. And that's why we invoke you. So, my Lord, I pray for this person, that they can receive strength, that they can receive hope, that they, my Father, can be in this moment renewed. You who are listening to us now, be free. Be free from all evil. Be free from anything that has been holding you back. Be free from all the darkness. Be free from all the chains. Be free from all the shackles. I determine this person free from all evil in Jesus Christ's name. And if you believe, say amen. Amen. What you feel now is a little of a lot that God wants to do in your life. But it's like I said, Sunday, 10 o'clock in the morning, we want you to be with us in our gathering of faith and miracles. We're going to put the map right now on the screen and more. If you maybe have a family member and they only speak Portuguese, we have a floor that also gives services in Portuguese. If you have a family member who only understands Spanish, we have also services in Spanish. Usted que nos ve ahora en este momento y usted está sufriendo, sepa que hay una salida para usted. Usted que acabó de llegar a este país, usted que no sabe qué hacer, usted que está sin rumbo, sin propósito. Estamos ubicados aquí en Toronto, 2420 de la Dufferin Street. You can take the 29 bus, the 929 bus. You can take the line 1 to Eglinton Avenue. All the modes of transportation to help you come to this place and see how God is working in the lives of many. I want to show you Kezia's story. Somebody that we grew up with, me, Lupita, somebody we know. We know her story well. We know who she was before she came, before she decided to live a life that was different than what she was living. I want you to pay attention to Kezia's story. God bless all of you. See you Sunday.
When I was around the age of 9, I was physically molested by a family member. It was a relative that was close to the family, and I was afraid to go to my mom to talk to her about it because she was strict. So I was scared that maybe she would have not believed me, or she would have taken it the wrong way. And I couldn't talk to my father because he wasn't always around. He was there, but he wasn't present all the time. So then I started associating myself with people that were affiliated in gangs. They will go around and feel like they was dominant, and I would feel like I was safe with them. But while I was with them, I started taking drugs. So I was addicted to smoking cigarettes. I was addicted to marijuana and drinking, and I was always partying with them. I felt like I needed money for those addictions. So I started to do more. I started to do favors for people, pretty much prostituting myself for money. And that's when I found myself being molested because I didn't want to be with a certain person, and it was forced upon me. After that, I fell in a deep depression. I started smoking every day, and I started smoking by myself. I started hearing voices and seeing things. I was completely depressed that I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to associate myself with anyone. I would just stay locked up in the house, just smoking. I wouldn't go see the day. I wouldn't see the sun. I wouldn't go out for pretty much nothing because I used to get anxiety being around other people. My mother knew of the church through the television. So she used to invite me, but I didn't want to go because I kind of felt like I was having fun. I was living my life, until I couldn't take it anymore, and I realized that I needed to do something different. So I did end up going a service on a Friday, and I felt like it was a relief. I was, that heavy burden that I had on top of me was off of my shoulders. I felt like I needed to continue to go. I started to do the chain of prayer, and I was delivered from my addictions. I wasn't as rebellious with my mother. My financial life was getting better. I received a promotion at work. I also received the Holy Spirit. Seeking the Holy Spirit was the only thing that I wanted to do at that time, because I was in such a depression that there was no other solution for me. And when I received the Holy Spirit, it was just like a peace, an inner peace that I had. I didn't have any desire to smoke. I didn't have any desire to be around the people that I needed. I felt safe. I felt like I had that true love. I was certain that God was with me. Words couldn't describe it, but I just felt like it was such a joy, a happiness, something that I was lacking in a long time because I was seeking in wrong places. I finally found the peace I was looking for. Today, I am a brand new person. I am happily married. I don't feel like I'm lacking anything. I have 2 wonderful girls. I don't have any addictions to anything. And I'm happy. I'm happy.
Sunday of the 7 prayers. In the gathering of faith and miracles, bringing restoration to health, prayer for your deliverance, to your love life, to your family, your financial life, for inner peace, and a real and true encounter with God. There are 7 prayers that will impact your life and destroy all your troubles, bringing new life in every way. Sunday of the gathering of faith and miracles. Sunday at 10 a.m. 2420 Different Street, 1 block north of Eglinton Avenue, and at every Universal Church in Canada.
Lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from my Lord, who made heaven and earth. He won't let my foot be moved. He who keeps me is the Lord, the one who keeps Israel. Will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is my keeper, He's the shade on my right hand. He keeps my soul, He protects me from all evil. He keeps my going out.